Imagine being so thirsty that your throat feels smaller with every breath. In front of you there is water. It shines in the riverbed. It moves over stones. It looks clean enough to trust. So you kneel down, drink, and feel your body come back to life. But the danger has already entered you. 2 days later, your stomach burns, your strength disappears, and your body begins losing water faster than you can replace it. There were no filters, no chlorine, no sealed bottles, no warning signs, and no knowledge of bacteria. The enemy was invisible. It had no smell, no color, and often no taste. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans drank from rivers, lakes, springs, puddles, and rainwater pools. And somehow, despite all the parasites, microbes, mud, waste, and rotting animals in the landscape, we survived. That is the real mystery. Ancient humans did not survive because the water was safe. They survived because they learned patterns before they understood the science behind them. The easiest answer would be to say they simply chose clean-looking water. But that is where the problem begins. Dangerous water does not always look dangerous. A brown puddle full of insects is easy to distrust. But a clear stream can still carry bacteria, protozoa, parasites, animal waste, or disease from miles upstream. To an ancient person, 2 pools could look almost identical. One saved your life. The other could empty your body. So their first teacher was not biology. It was memory. Someone drank. Then the group watched what happened. If several people became sick after using the same pond, that place became marked in the mind. Not on a map. Not in a notebook. In fear. In warning. In stories repeated beside the fire. This stream is usually safe. That pool changes after rain. Do not drink where the animals gather too long. These were not scientific rules, but they were survival rules. And survival rules do not need microscopes to matter. Ancient humans became experts at reading water through context. Movement mattered. Smell mattered. Temperature mattered. Location mattered. Water flowing from stone or spring could be safer than warm, stagnant water sitting under the sun. But safer did not mean safe. A river could look alive and still be carrying death from somewhere upstream. That is why the landscape had to be understood as a whole. Where did animals cross? Where did the river slow down? Where did mud collect? What happened after storms? Which springs still flowed in the dry season? Which water source made children sick last year? In some places, humans could dig into damp ground and wait for water to seep through sand and sediment. It was not perfect purification, but the earth itself could remove some of the visible filth. Sometimes survival was not about finding pure water. It was about finding the least dangerous option. Then came the most obvious solution: heat. If water might be dangerous, boil it. But for much of prehistory, boiling water was not as simple as placing a metal pot over a flame. There were no metal pots. In many places, there was not even pottery yet. You cannot hold a river over a fire. So humans found another way. They heated stones until the stones became thermal weapons, then dropped them into containers filled with water. The rock gave its heat to the liquid. When it cooled, another hot stone replaced it. Again and again, the temperature rose. Slow, awkward, exhausting, but effective. This technique, often called stone boiling, shows something important about ancient intelligence. Humans did not need modern equipment to solve problems. They needed observation, patience, and a reason strong enough to try. But they probably did not boil every drink. Heating water costs fuel, time, attention, and containers. If a group trusted a spring for generations, they likely drank from it directly most of the time. Ancient humans were not perfect survival machines. They took shortcuts when experience told them the shortcut usually worked. And then another problem appeared: carrying water. Water is heavy, inconvenient, and impossible to ignore. A liter weighs about a kilogram. 10 liters become a burden you feel with every step. So humans turned nature into containers. Animal skins, stomachs, bladders, gourds, wood, bark, and later pottery. A bladder may sound unpleasant, but nature had already designed it to hold liquid. With containers, humans could leave the river. They could cross dry land. They could store water for later. But storage created a new danger. Water sitting still can change. Hands enter the vessel. Dust falls in. Insects land. Heat builds. Invisible life begins multiplying. Ancient people did not know about microbes, but they could notice when water smelled wrong, tasted different, or looked strange. Those clues were imperfect, but in a dangerous world, imperfect clues were still better than blindness. This is where one of the most repeated internet myths appears. Ancient people drank beer because water was always unsafe. The truth is more interesting. Ancient people absolutely drank water. They had to. But fermented drinks sometimes offered advantages. They could provide liquid, calories, and a process that reduced certain risks. People did not need to know what fermentation was doing. They only needed to remember the result. When we drink this prepared liquid, we are usually fine. When we drink from that source, people get sick. In places like Egypt and Mesopotamia, beer became part of ordinary food systems and labor rations. It was not just a party drink. It could be nourishment, hydration, routine, and cultural habit in the same vessel. But beer did not replace water everywhere. It became one answer among many. The deeper pattern is this: humans survived by repeating what seemed to work before they knew why it worked. In dry regions, the challenge became even harsher. Sometimes water was not visible at all. Ancient people learned to read signs modern eyes might ignore. Greener plants, animal trails, damp soil, insects, birds, and low ground. If many animals moved toward the same place at dawn, they might have been heading toward water. Following them could save you, could also lead you toward predators. A dry riverbed might hide moisture under sand. Digging in the right place could produce muddy water slowly seeping upward. It was not beautiful. It was not clean in the modern sense. But it could keep a person alive. And when thirst became severe, the body itself became part of the danger. Dehydration does not only weaken muscles. It attacks judgment. It makes decisions worse exactly when decisions matter most. You misread distance. You walk too far. You rest too late. You drink from a source you normally would reject. The more desperately you need water, the less reliable your brain becomes at finding it. There was no secret adaptation that made ancient humans immune. Their stomachs were not magical. They got sick. They suffered infections. They died from contaminated water, dehydration, and mistakes. Many did die. The reason humanity survived is not because every person survived. It is because enough people learned, remembered, warned others, and passed the knowledge forward. Do not drink there. Wait until the mud settles. Use that spring. Dig beside those reeds. Follow this route. These instructions may have been spoken long before anyone could explain bacteria, parasites, filtration, or disease. And in a way, we still live inside that same chain of trust. Today, you turn a metal handle and clean water appears as if by magic. You fill a glass, drink, and never wonder whether you will still be healthy 2 days later. But that confidence is not natural. It is technology stacked on top of ancient memory. Before pipes, laboratories, and disinfection, safety might have been an elder pointing at a pond and saying no. And if everyone who ignored that warning became sick, the warning became stronger than any written law. Behind every glass of safe water is a long history of bad water, remembered places, lost people, and corrected mistakes. Someone avoided a stagnant pool. Someone trusted a spring. Someone heated stones and dropped them into a container. Someone noticed that stored water changed. Someone followed animals and found the hidden source. So no, ancient humans did not drink dirty water casually because they were tougher than us. They drank water because they had no choice. Sometimes they chose well. Sometimes they chose wrong. And sometimes the price of being wrong was death. Humanity survived by slowly learning to read something that looked perfectly transparent. Water seemed simple, but it carried invisible worlds inside it. And the story does not end with rivers, springs, and rain. Because often, the greatest threat inside water did not come from dead animals or distant mud. It came from humans themselves. No toilets, no sewers, no soap. Groups living close together. Waste entering the same landscape that supplied drinking water. Which leads to an even darker question. How did ancient humans survive their own waste? And maybe the most uncomfortable part is this. Before humans understood sanitation, the nose may have been one of the first warning systems.